Welcome to Wisdom Within with Tina and Tonya. Today we have a really good episode for you. It is all about something that is called the mother wound, and we're going to be unpacking that today. It does not mean that you're rejecting your mother, so stick with us as we walk through that. So there comes a point or a moment when you realize that the nurturing you needed may never come from the place that you hoped that it would, and somehow you still deserve it. So many women learn to care for others, but they don't learn to care for themselves. What if reclaiming your ability to nurture yourself is the key to healing, not waiting for the apology that may never come? So stick with us on this very important and very insightful episode today. But before we dive in case you don't know me, I'm Tonya. I work with women who are experiencing a spiritual shift and they feel called towards something greater, but they struggle with self doubt and with trusting themselves. And I guide them to fully embrace their power and step into their next level. And Tina, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tina, and I guide women to deepen their spiritual connection through simple rituals, gratitude practices, and elemental wisdom. And what I do is I help them weave sacred spirituality into everyday life with ease and meaning.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's jump into this. First of all, for those who are wondering, let's talk about what the mother wound even is. What is this mother wound?
Right. So it's not blaming the mother for whatever is coming up, but it's that pain that we carry um, when we need that unconditional love and acceptance and safety, but it wasn't met. Those things that weren't met in our lives when we had those, and then I think we have a lot of that in the collective, um, and sometimes it's from a mother who has had a lot of trauma in her life, right? And so she's not able to give you that nurturing that you needed as a child. And or maybe she, has other issues that and can't give you the love that you needed. And so that's kind of where that stems from, I believe. So,
Mhm. I love that you brought that up because when I think of my own parenting journey as being the mother, um, I know that not everything, I didn't parent the way that I do now. I didn't parent 100% the way that I would have liked to. I had my own healing, my own trauma, my
mhm.
own things to go through, and I did my best that I could with what I had, but looking back, I wish I could have done things in a completely different way. So I love that we have this really being able to not blame. It's not about the blame, and it's because every mother has her own experience, own adventures, own traumas. Um, and yet, I know that you and I both very much carry this mother wound of neglect and not
Right.
having received what we needed when we needed it most.
Mhm.
So it's a really important topic, I feel like, for a lot of us. So what are some ways that you notice it showing up for yourself, for your clients? What do you see?
Oh man, so I'm just like the typical,
The poster child.
overgiving, chronic self-doubt, the fear of setting boundaries. I mean, it's just it comes up for me, all of it, unworthiness, not taking time for myself, the self-doubt is just like through the roof many times. I see it, and I'm constantly overgiving to the point where sometimes it's like I burn out because I'm giving too much of what my energy to things. So those are some of the ways it has shown up for me. I mean, there's like probably a list this long.
All the things, really.
Yeah, right.
Hmm. Well, and I feel like each of these can come from a different place, right? It comes from, or it looks differently in the way that it shows up in you versus the way that it shows up in me. Even like overgiving and exhaustion can look differently in each person, but it's
Hmm.
just remembering that when we are in that space, we're not caring for ourselves, we're not nurturing ourselves. And there's almost like this longing that someone come in and give us the nurturing that we need. And that's one
Right.
thing that I see in myself and some others is really waiting for others to finally take care of you, really waiting for, maybe like in some ways it's waiting for that Prince Charming to come and sweep you off your feet or whatever,
Right.
but really more in this, I'm waiting for someone to come and make me feel better. I'm
Mhm.
Because when we think about the archetype of mother, whether this was your experience with a mother or not, this idea of mother, it's very nurturing, holding, hugging, loving, kiss it better, talking kind, emotional support, that nurturing, loving energy archetype of mother.
Mhm.
And for the reasons we've already talked about, so many of us didn't get that. And so we're still hungry for that. We're still waiting for that. And like we have a rough day and there's still that desire and that longing to have someone just put their arms around you and say, hey, it's going to be okay.
Right.
Everything's going to be fine. And so we're waiting still in that space for someone to come in and finally take care of us to make it all better. It's
Mhm.
going to be okay. And even if we do have an active mother in our lives who is very nurturing, there still can live that wound within us where it doesn't feel complete or it still feels like we're missing something in that way. I know that's one way it comes up for me quite a bit is just wanting to feel taken care of, wanting to feel support, wanting to feel unconditional love, wanting to have a cheerleader um, on my side. But really, there's almost like, I feel like a little bit of the difference with that is actually wanting it to come from a mother figure,
Mhm.
because like you have your friends who are like cheerleading you, but there's still that nurturing longing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I see that in myself too. I've seen it show up in many different ways. Because I have longed for that nurture, to have that somebody to be like, oh, it's gonna be okay. To kiss the boo boo, right? To kiss
Yep.
it'll be okay, everything will be fine. And yeah, so I've had that show up a lot for me. The other thing that I've had show up is it's not so much as, well, yeah, it is. It's, suppressing those emotions of being the good girl, right? And for me, it's because I have always kind of been one that's unfiltered and have had to learn to filter myself because others were like, no, no, you can't say that, you can't say that. And so I've suppressed that a lot. And yeah, so that's kind of shown up for me too. I mean, like I said, there's a whole list of of
Laundry.
things that have shown up, and like you, I had similar experiences with being the mother. So when I look at these wounds, I think of the wounds I inflicted on my kids, and then I also think of the wounds inflicted by my mother, and most of it was because of trauma in both of our lives, right? And so yeah, we have that.
Mhm.
So
And I think of even like the fear of setting boundaries, specifically when we're thinking about this mother wound in this context of families. Setting boundaries with our kids as a mom can be really challenging too, because if I set boundaries, it's like, are they going to love me?
mhm.
There comes up a lot of that too, because maybe our mom set boundaries with us or didn't, and we have all of this life experience of challenge. We didn't, for many of us, we didn't have boundary setting modeled. So we don't know how to set boundaries. And that can be part of it too, and how it shows up, especially in this idea of overgiving, where we're just pushing ourselves to the extreme. We're exhausted, we're fatigued, and we're just giving, giving, giving to everyone so that they will nourish us in return. So they will give us that unconditional love in return. And that stems from that mother wound right there of, wishing that we had that support. So
Hmm.
I feel like it's so broad and it can be incredibly encompassing. And I do still going back to what we said right in the beginning, it's really important to not blame because that's
Right,
giving away our power, right? Where
right,
it's your fault I'm this way. It's your fault. These have been my experiences. When in reality, maybe those set us up for some experiences, but we are taking ownership and really we have for the majority of our adult life recognize that these are my choices. This
hmm,
is, but we still end up living from that mother wound in that
right,
way.
right. And yeah, I think it's very important that we realize that we do have those choices after, um, yeah, from when we're children, we didn't have the choice, right, to do the things that we, but as we got older and as we've started, we've become these adults and whatever, then it's time to take responsibility for whatever it is that has come up, and and we don't place the blame on the mother or the father or the whoever it is that created this. And we don't know if they created it or help to put us in this position, but when we can take ownership and take responsibility for how we react after, now, that actually puts us in that powerful place. Like you said, it helps us to stand in our power, to be powerful in our own way, and we're not giving away our power by putting that blame on others.
Hmm. And I love that because this really is, why it does matter for us to reclaim that right to nurture ourselves, to
Hmm.
allow ourselves, like, what we said in the very beginning, to allow ourselves to not be waiting for the nurturing that we never got, right?
Right.
We are in charge of it now. And that is a very powerful place because when we're waiting for someone else to nurture us, we're waiting for an apology that will never come, or we're waiting for that nurturing that we most likely, I know I won't get. We're
I
waiting for
I
a lot of
didn't get.
those. Right, right. And it's like, this is why it's so important to reclaim that right to nurture ourselves and why it matters. And so, what are some of the ways that you see that being so important?
um, the signs that you're ready to heal. Um, it's like when you're exhausted about being the strong one all the time. I'm like, I know I feel that to the core because I'm always the strong one, always the one that's there for everybody else, and always that nurturer, right? And I get exhausted, and that there, sometimes we have resentments that show up. And I know you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier as we were preparing for this, and um, I know I don't I think most of my resentments are hidden, are pressed down, right? And but you can see them show up in your body. It's like I know my liver is like a little bit stressed out, and I'm sure that's part of resentments that are coming up. Um, and when we're starting to crave those deeper connections, right? We want deeper connections with others. We want deeper connections with ourselves. And so those can be a few of the signs that we are ready to start moving into that healing process of this mother wound.
Mhm. And I think too, just being done. Like we're
Yeah.
like, I am done with this. I'm not doing this anymore. This isn't
Hmm.
helpful for me. This has been coming up a lot for me and for you recently with
Yeah.
all of these non-nourishing habits and patterns that we've been in, and being like, and I'm done, and
Hmm.
I'm doing things differently. And I love it because it's really breaking that silent inheritance that we never agreed to carry, right? Because
Right.
when we're younger, and we're, even if we watched a parent who was self-sacrificing, or who was overgiving or to others. A lot of times they were
Mhm.
doing it to the outside people, but not to their
Right.
own family, right? And so it's like,
Yes.
but we grew up watching that, and we silently inherited that. It was
Mhm.
something that kind of a generational programming in its own way, and we never agreed to carry it. And so now we're in a spot where we're like, I'm done with this. I'm not doing
Mhm.
this anymore. And that's a beautiful sign, that you're ready to heal with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I know well, you and I have talked a lot about that, about how we're both that, like you said, we're done. And I just recently had a lot of things come up that I'm done with, like just what I talked about being the strong one, about being that nurturer, about being the one that's always holding the space for everybody else but myself, right? And I'm totally done with that. And it's shown up in my work, it's shown up in my life, it's shown up in how I treat myself. And one day last week, all of a sudden it just hit, and I'm just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I am sick of seeing myself being this way. And so sometimes it shows up that way. Sometimes it's just like, and that's it. And other times it's just that niggling that, and what happened was, it was the niggling that I refused to admit was there, until it finally showed up in such a strong way that I had to acknowledge it and had to be like, okay, I'm done, and I'm not going to allow myself to be this way any longer, right?
Mhm.
So,
And that's where I'm at too. And I'm in that spot where I'm like, I'm taking care of myself. I'm rewriting this pattern, which
mhm,
is so perfect because I shared my card pull with you this morning. And one of them
right.
was like, it's time for you to let that old story complete so that you can write a new one. And I felt that to the core of me because I'm like, yeah, my old story has been overexhaustion, like pushing myself to the limits, trying to make sure I have all the things and whatever. And I'm like, now my new story is self-nurturing. It
Mhm,
is non-negotiable time for myself to not just, do more, but just to
right,
take a break and really rewriting the patterns. And that is what we can do when we start nurturing ourselves, is not the idea of what would I have liked my mom to have done or to have taught me, but what do I want right now? And what is best for me right now? And that's really, even that determination or setting that, like, this is how I'm doing it now, is rewriting that pattern.
right.
And so, that's a lot of the beauty of the work that we do with this. Um, because I feel like we've been taught to abandon ourselves. Well, I mean,
Mhm,
that's collective, right?
yeah.
Everybody, we've been taught to not trust ourselves, not listen to ourselves, abandon our needs, our wants for the
For
comfort of the
the other.
other,
Yeah.
and we've really kind of, in our adult lives, like for me right now in this moment, I have accepted those,
Mhm.
even though I have that inner rebellious side that's don't tell me how to live my life, but there's still me living in the programming of living my life the way other people told me to live my life. And so, like, I really have abandoned that part of myself. And
Mhm.
so once we start like doing this work and working on this mother wound, it's really teaching us to return and heal and return to who we are, giving ourselves the nurturing that we really need. um, Kicking my feet up for a couple of hours has been so simple and yet so exactly what I needed.
Impactful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's impactful when you do those kinds of things. I mean, that's like same thing with me. It's like taking time just to be,
Mm-hmm.
because I think another thing, I don't know, another thing that I see with both you and I is the need to be productive, right? Because and that is, it could be part of this, it could be part of other wounds that come up, but there's always that need to be productive so that we are worthy. And that is, I think that has shown up a lot for me in my business, where I am constantly wanting, to be productive. And what does productive look like? It's been, for me, it's been the busy work, right? It's not been the impactful things that need to happen for work. So what would be most impactful is taking that half hour, and that's what I've done, is sit outside for a half hour, just no phone, no, I tell Joe, come get me in a half hour, and just listen to the wind, listen to the birds, listen to the river, and just be. And that is nurturing. That is something that my whole body, my everything in me needs. Whoops. Everything in me needs so badly.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, those little things like that, and like you with the rest, those things are more impactful than we even imagine, when we can take that little bit of time like that and just allow ourselves to nurture ourselves in that way.
And I love that because, when we think about healing this mother wound or healing any wound, any wounding, any traumas that we have, we think that there's more things to do. It's
Hmm.
like it comes with this, I need to do these things to heal.
Right.
Well, no, the only thing you need to do is create space, set the
Hmm.
like the intention of I'm going outside to turn off, to do less, to connect with nature. And it doesn't need to be a one more thing to add to your to-do list. That's the whole point of this, is that nurturing motherly archetype is like take a break,
Hmm.
rest. And that's the difference, is not making it okay, I have a 15-minute window to go take a rest, rather than I have a 15-minute window, I'm going to rest. There's a
Hmm.
very different vibe to that. Rather than adding something in for those 15 minutes, it's allowing ourselves to go outside, to connect with nature, to take a drink of water, to lay down on my Reiki table and take a little rest, or whatever
Yeah.
it might be. But this also, what comes with this is this notion that healing is for others. It's like healing is for the kids. We make our kids feel better. We make our partners feel better. We make the neighbor feel better. We make those who are grieving feel better. But healing is I'm fine. Like I
Hmm.
don't need it for me. And if I'm receiving, we feel very uncomfortable receiving because it's selfish. And it's
Hmm.
no, 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 someone else could use it even more. I mean, I see that in myself, even with shopping. Like when I
Yeah.
bought my moose drum for you, remember I almost let that gentleman take it.
Yes.
He was very nice. So I'm not calling him bad names, but I almost did, because I was like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And then I
Hmm.
panic when he's over there touching it and I had to go buy the drum because I knew it was for me. But it's
Hmm.
that tendency to, it's fine, someone else
Hmm.
can have it, whatever that may be. And so when we really start looking at healing isn't selfish, it's actually sacred repair.
Yeah, I
That
love that.
I do
Yeah.
too. And I love the vibe of that, where it's sacred repair. And think about, if we were passing on anything to our families and our kids, if we were passing on repair, if we were passing on healing wisdom instead of the wounding,
You're right.
just talk about meaningful life.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I love that.
I do too. So, what are some first steps to begin healing? Because I know we've kind of talked about a lot of things, but if people are like brand new to healing this mother wound, what are some ideas that you would toss out for them?
So awareness is always number one, right? When we
That
can.
was the last message you sent to me this morning was, oh, self-awareness.
Yeah, awareness is always number one. I think that is like the key, is like when we can start being aware of those things that show us when we are abandoning ourselves, or those, being aware of those patterns that we are in, like what you and I have just talked about, with the patterns of overgiving, or the pattern of not resting, the pattern of pushing until we're totally exhausted. When we can start to be aware of those patterns, that's the first step. And then we can start to um, notice them as we're doing them. And then we can start to stop stop those patterns. We can start to take that time to go outside, breaking the pattern. It's not always easy, but it is something that, we can do. And another thing is to just allowing ourselves to, give ourselves permission. If we need a permission slip, write a permission slip down for, I give myself permission to take 30 minutes every day to rest or to just be. Or, give myself permission to, be myself. And so, allowing that permission, because sometimes we do feel like, I know for me, I'm looking for permission a lot of times. There have been a lot of times in my life when it's like I still search for permission to do the things or somebody to validate my ideas or validate whatever I'm doing and be like, "Oh yeah, that's okay." And then I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll run with that because, they gave me permission." So, sometimes we think we need the permission, but we can give it to ourselves, right?
Mhm. I love that. Um, and I think too, like being nurturing to yourself in ways that you wish others were to
Hmm.
you. So
Yeah.
if you look at the book, The Five Love Languages, one of the things that they talk about is you can tell, even if you've never read the book, you can
Yeah.
tell what your love language is or what someone else's love language is based on how they give love.
Right.
So my middle son, especially, one of his love languages, and of course he's never read the book, and but I know because he gets so excited to give gifts. It just
Hmm.
makes his day. He used to bring me home a candy bar all the time and surprise me with it because it would just lit him up. So I know that one of his love languages that's key is giving and receiving gifts.
Hmm.
So gifting. So what is yours? Like looking at what is it that you wish, ways in which you wish others would have given you love, given you nourishment, given you care, and start giving that to yourself. If I wish that someone would have said, slow down.
Hmm.
I wish someone would have said, enough is enough. I wish someone would have said, please just go play. All
Hmm.
those little things. Um, and so I can give that to myself now. So it's almost like making a wish list, not of what I wish wouldn't have happened, because that we can't wish for a better past, right?
Right.
But what is it that I wish they would have done? What are things I wish I would have heard? Because one of my love languages is positive affirmations, or,
Right.
so
Hmm.
words are a big thing. They cast spells. So, what spells do I wish people would have been casting on my behalf?
Right.
Those are things that I can do for myself now. So really, even speaking kindly to yourself can be something that we wished we were being nourished in. And I know that that one's one that you just recently had an
Hmm.
experience with. You
Yeah.
want to share about that?
Yeah. So uh, I was telling you a little bit ago that I was sitting here, and it was actually just yesterday. And I don't remember if I was journaling. I was sitting here at my table, and all of a sudden, all of this nasty words came in, talking about me. You're stupid, you're this, you're that. And I was just like, "Oh, wow," and I realized that it had came in, and I stopped. And I was like, I did turn the tables on myself and did say to myself, "Now, would you have said that to somebody else?" And really kind of thought it through and was just kind of like, wow. And really paying really noticing that I need to start paying closer attention to what my brain is coming up with, because um, those thoughts sneak in on us sometimes, and we're not fully aware. Sometimes it's just like those are unconscious thoughts that sometimes we have, that we really don't we don't, and a lot of times we don't even believe it, but it's something that maybe had been said to you when you were younger, or maybe had been a something that had you assumed about yourself after, as you're growing up or whatever. And we have those things, pop into our brains like that. And so that's the awareness part. That is being aware of those thoughts that do come in like that.
And as you were saying that, I thought of a slight spin on it because I'm very much that way too. I would never say those things to someone
Right.
else. And if someone else said those things to me,
Right.
hell no. No, I can cut people. I'm a Scorpio. I have no problem cutting people out of my life. Like, be
Uh-huh.
gone and instant be gone. Like, no explanation necessary, And so it's
Right.
like where I would never say those to someone else and I would never accept someone saying those things to me. Why am I allowing myself to say that? And it is
Exactly.
awareness. A lot of that stuff is just running on in the background, but it is when you slow down and pay attention that it's time to start making those changes. And we can actually rewire that. We can change
Hmm.
that with that little record stop moment like what you had where, wait,
Hmm.
what did I just say?
Hmm.
No, I don't talk to myself this way. That
Right.
is how we rewire that. And it's those little repetitions every time we notice it that helps us shift that way of thinking over time
Yeah,
and replacing
exactly.
it with something else as well. So replacing it with gratitude. I know that's one of your big things.
Yeah.
Replacing it with actually this is what I bring to the world. I'm
Hmm.
smart, I'm kind, I love empowering others, whatever those things may be, to bring in and kind of fill that gap of shift. It's like I'm
Yeah.
not doing that anymore and then our mind is like, okay, then what are we doing?
Right.
Okay, this is what we're
Yeah.
doing, giving ourselves positive words that I wish others would have given me, but things that you really do feel are true. And that is how we change our lives. Just
Hmm.
one of the many ways, but that is
You're
one
right.
way. And if that is all anyone ever did, that would dramatically change their lives.
Right. And I love, I've talked about this on several times on the videos. I've been doing Joe Dispenza meditations and I listen to all of his books and whatever. And one of the things that he talks about is that specifically that it's like he in his meditations he asks you to think about those things that you don't want to be anymore, or those words that you don't want to say anymore, or those feelings you don't want to feel anymore, and be so aware of them that they won't pass by you. And so that's, it's like bringing all that to the forefront into your awareness so that you can take that time to reframe or to like, with the affirmations or with saying how I want to be, speaking out, you know, I am not this way, but I am this way, right? And we speak it that way. If we, it might be what we want to be, but we speak it as I am instead of, I want to be,
Wish.
So,
It's a
yeah,
declaration.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely a declaration. And so, yeah, and I love that. Um, bring that awareness in that way.
I do too. So another thing that we can do with this inner mother work is meeting our basic needs. So allowing
Mm,
ourselves to rest, that is the
yeah.
one where I'm at right now because I was messaging you this morning about how I'm addicted to stress. This is what's happening to me.
Hmm.
And the last several days I have really given myself permission to rest. And I'm a projector in human design. Like this is my key signature thing is allowing myself to rest. And I have pushed it to the limits, even though I know better here. I even know
Hmm.
better here. And yet here I am in the loop. And so it's really recognizing that this is just part of that mother wound. And it's just allowing me to truly bring this nurturing back into myself with rest, with good food, giving myself time to play, allowing myself to open up to my creativity and not doing everything at the expense of me.
Hmm.
And I've done really well with setting up boundaries with others. Like I have that pretty good in a
Hmm.
lot of ways. Um, but yet I've not been caring for myself and having boundaries with myself. It's not uncommon for me to be up way too late, not wanting to go to bed, resisting the sleep. I don't sleep in. My body's just awake. And so really just allowing myself to meet my own basic needs and me meeting them,
Yeah.
not someone coming in. So it's really cute because my youngest is at home and he'll say, Mom, you matter too. You need to go to bed. And I'm like, I know. And I really appreciate that. I think it's adorable and I appreciate it so much. But it needs to come from me,
Right.
where I'm like, I need to be the one saying, okay, good night, I'm going to
Hmm.
bed because it matters to me. And I think that's something that we forget is we're still waiting for someone else to come and say, okay, time for bed. Here's that
Right.
mothering thing. And if you don't go to bed right now, I'm taking away your toys or
Yeah.
whatever. And I have to do that for myself. And that is part of what this work comes in is
Hmm.
how can I nurture myself? And
Right.
what does that look like? It's not what I should do. It's what feels good to me. What is my body, my heart, my soul craving?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm in that same place, with, especially with the creativity and with the creating rituals that are sustainable for me. And the creativity has been the big one for me. Well, the food, I mean, it's been all of it, all the practices that I do that I've been creating and allowing myself to do those things. I painted several rattles yesterday, and it just was like so. I don't know. I just felt so good. I was like, dang, it's been so long since I've drawn. I do mandalas almost every day. I'm drawing a mandala and working on one in one form or another every day. But to just sit down and just draw out like I drew a hummingbird freehand on the one of the rattles, and it's, to me, it's pretty wonky, but I'm like, man, I've gotten out of practice because I have not allowed myself the freedom to just sit down and just draw or paint or create these. I love creating rattles, and I had not been able to, or allowing my had not been allowing myself to do that. And it's it, the other thing is that for a while there, it was hard for me to do that because I wasn't seeing it as part of my job, right? But that's what I do. I sell rattles, I sell drums, I sell, and so I can look at it in that way too, as, this is part of my work. This is what I do. But it's also a part of nurturing my soul. I mean, it's at a soul level because it's so nurturing to me when I can sit down and do that kind of creative things, the painting on the rattles, or even just making the rattles or making the drums, or all things, crafting, I guess, is what really feeds my soul. So,
Well, and it's part of who you are. So, yeah, it
yeah.
is what you do and it is part of your job, but it is because it's an extension of you
Yeah,
in that way.
that's true.
And I noticed for myself, even just yesterday, saying no to me
Hmm.
with, here I'm moved into this new space. I can't wait to fill these shelves behind me
Right.
and organize all of my stuff. And I wanted to continue last night. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do it all in a day. Go home and
Hmm.
go to bed. I knew if I didn't stop, if I allowed myself to keep going, that I would not. And it would be yet again when I'm sabotaging my sleep and all of those things. And so
Hmm.
it's really just reminding myself that I matter more than whether or not there's stuff on the shelves and whether or
Right.
not my space is a little disorganized. It doesn't all have to be done in a day, and that's okay. And that is how we heal this. That
Hmm.
is by saying I'm nurturing myself. I'm giving myself that motherhood love, that mother
Right.
archetype love, to say it's okay to be done. Enough is
Yep.
enough. It doesn't have to be done in a day. Just like I would say to my boys, it's
Yep.
okay. Rest. You matter too. Go get yourself some good food and go to bed. Get some rest. You can take care of it tomorrow. I would say that to my kids.
Hmm.
And yet, and I did say that to myself yesterday.
Uh,
Normally I was in the nope, I got to get done. I got to get done.
yep.
And so it's really just that intentional shift
Yeah.
in that way.
Yeah. I love that. And that's definitely it. That's part of that's how we heal that, right?
Hmm.
And, another thing is holding space for your emotions without judgment, which is, sometimes we get into that space of judging ourselves when we have those deep emotions that come up, no matter what it is. And I actually have been in this space this last few weeks, because, like I said, I've realized that I was done with certain things. And what was happening was these emotions were coming up when I was even thinking about doing those certain things. And it wasn't just that there was a gut feeling, but there was also this emotion of dread. And I was like, I can't be that way. Why would I be that way? I am the one that's holding this space for everybody. I'm the one that's doing these things. I created this. I'm the one that should be doing this, right? And I judge myself because I'm like, I can't, how can I not do, And I finally had to sit down and, had a come to Jesus meeting with myself and be like, look, that's not feeding you anymore. And it's not something that you can keep on doing anymore. So, allow it to be what it is. And I finally allowed myself to just be, saying, okay, I'm done. And, eventually there'll probably become a time when I want to do it again, and that's cool. But right now, it's not feeding me the way that it used to. And those emotions that came up with that were very strong emotions, and I was in a very strong place of judgment. I'm judging myself like crazy because this is something that I've been doing for what, 3 years now, and consistently. And I finally had to just be like, nope, I'm done. And I have to just let it go. So,
I think that judgment piece comes up a lot, especially around our emotions too. And
hmm.
I think sometimes that does depend on the way in which we were raised, the experiences, the stories. There's a lot that goes into it, but especially this motherhood one too, because it's the idea of, why is it that when we get on an airplane, they tell us that we have to put the masks on ourselves first? Like we have
Right.
to be told to do that even before we put that on our child. And a lot of that comes to emotions too, where it's
Hmm.
like, we're going to allow you to have your emotions, but I'm not allowed to have my emotions.
Right.
I grew up in a home where emotions were not allowed, period. Like no one
Hmm.
was allowed to feel anything. You could feel happy for the right things, you could
Hmm.
feel sad at the right times, like funerals.
Yeah.
That's about it. But it was there was no authentic emotions. It was very controlled, your emotional uh, expression was defined, very
Hmm.
defined. And you weren't allowed to go outside of um, those definitions. And so as I have emotions, believe it or not, I do have emotions. And they come up and those things, here's this emotion. And now I'm judging myself as well because I'm weak,
Hmm.
because I'm being a baby, because I let someone get to me.
Right.
Rather than just saying, no, that was a dick move and it hurt my feelings. And
Yeah.
now I'm going to allow myself that emotion. That's not weakness, that's humanity. And
Hmm.
all of those things still come back with me where I shouldn't be feeling this way. Or they didn't mean it that way. So I should just let that go. We should sweep that under
Yeah.
the rug. We shoulding all over the
Yeah.
place. And it is
Exactly.
all judgment, right? It is, and allowing ourselves to really hold that space with how does that make me feel if I remove the boundary from that person and allow them back into my life, because that's the request, right? That's the
Hmm.
request coming in. And then it comes up, am I being selfish? What's happening? No, I'm honoring myself because I'm
Right.
enough too. And so
Right.
that's the shift, is being able to say, I'm not being a bad person. I understand that these things might be troublesome to someone else, but this is authentic to me and how I feel. And I'm honoring myself, my feelings, my emotions, because I get to matter too. And it's a very different experience when we allow ourselves to do
Yeah.
that without
without
because
the
it's
judgment.
very easy to say, yeah, I'm being a bitch and I don't care.
Mhm.
That's it's easy to say that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it kind of like alleviates a little bit of the of that, but that is still actually you're not being a bitch. You're being
Mhm.
very loving to yourself. You know, there's still makes you the bad guy in a way, almost
Mhm.
self-sabotaging in its own way, where we're taking on that projection of others when in reality it's like, no, I'm being exactly who I need to be. I'm honoring myself exactly in the way. And so just looking at the words that we use around that even can be very aware, help us with awareness and help us heal that
Yeah.
also. And
Yeah.
very empowering
Definitely.
when we start letting go of I'm doing something bad or I'm doing
Mhm.
something wrong. It's like, no, I'm doing something absolutely right to nourish my soul and the things that I need to do.
Right. That's exactly.
So, what are some things that you do for helping yourself with all of this? Do you have some practices? Because I know that we both love rituals, we love ceremony, we love all the cool things. So, what are some things that you have been doing specifically to help yourself heal this wound within?
So, I was just telling you, I created a post on Instagram about last spring. I started working with the ancestors in my altar, right? And I decided that I needed to put a picture of my mother and my father on there, and I would take them coffee every morning. And that was one thing that was like so healing to me. It was like, and I was thinking about it this morning, and I've been kind of a little emotional, and it could be because it is that time of the year again. Because what happened was I was taking the coffee out, and before I knew it, those feelings of um, I had bad feeling towards my parents, right? Okay, and so those feelings of irritation and frustration and all the things, the grief, everything just kind of started to dissipate as I'm taking them coffee every morning. And sometimes I would just take the coffee and just say thank you. And sometimes I would take the coffee and sit there for a minute and just kind of sit with them, you know. And it was so it was the one of the most healing things I've done. And I knew when it was time I was able to bury my mom, right? Because we didn't get that when she passed away. She didn't want any kind of services, and so that what they said that it was, you know, and I probably wouldn't have gone anyway. But anyway, it was we didn't get to have that burial, and so what happened was her picture blew away one day, and I was like, okay, it's time. And so I found the picture, and I took it and buried it in a little ceremony, you know, and then did the same thing with my dad. But that was one of the most healing things that I had done as far as the mother, you know, as healing my mother wound and helping me to go through that grief and go through all of the things with the mother. Another thing is just creating those daily rituals that I do. I've been doing some rituals that are very nurturing to me and to my soul, right? And so those are some of the things that help me to nurture. And one thing that I really like the idea of, which I have not done yet, I do have an altar right here for my family, and it's ancestor altar, and every morning I light a candle, and I infuse that candle with a prayer that we are releasing those generational patterns, or those generational patterns, or those generational traumas, so that our next 7 generations will not be carrying those. And so I write those things, or I light the candle every morning, and I say that little prayer, I'm contemplating a self-mothering altar where I can honor that healing journey, right? So I can just create a small little altar where I can put, you know, maybe I'll find some things of my mother's that I still have. Maybe I'll put something on that altar that was hers, and maybe I'll put something that represents me as a mother, and maybe I'll put something as my for my kids as they are mothers, and just helping us all to heal that. And maybe it needs to be right here where it is, and just add that a little bit more, another deeper level to it in helping to heal that mother wound that can be so deeply ingrained in all of us.
I love that. And I love how you do the ceremony and the altars. And I think they're so impactful. And so just a visual reminder, a daily place to go, an intention, and allowing it to hold that energy and hold that space. Altars are
Mhm.
just so
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, and I that's the I have found so much. I hadn't realized how much healing that I find in the altars when I'm creating altars, and I do impermanent altars, and I've taught you, and you'll do them every so often too, I see. And I'll just I love taking flowers and doing it, but if I don't have flowers, I'll find pine cones or I'll find branches or whatever and go out and just create a little altar for whatever's on my mind that day, and just allowing it to be an impermanent altar for that day, and just letting it blow away or disintegrate as it does. But I also love having these intentional spaces, like my little space here. I'm creating another space over here, and I've got one outside where I take coffee to the ancestors every day. And I just love those little intentional spaces that are made just for that thing. So,
I love all the rituals and all the things. I love a big
yeah.
production. I love candles. I want all the stuff. But one of my favorite sacred practices is simply self-trust.
Hmm.
And it is, and for me, it's not that I always trust myself, right? I have questions, I have self-doubt, I have all the things. But there are certain things where I catch myself in it and I'm like, oh no, no, no. So especially and it's been hugely impactful for me, really, with healing and nurturing myself, is not minimizing what I know, what I experience. This, as mothers, and even if you're not a mother, just this feminine energy that we have, it's very intuitive. We have a lot of intuitive abilities. We are more subtle to, or more aware of the subtle energies. There's a lot of that I carry that I've never, like, until this chapter of my life, I've never really been experienced or known that I carried all of this. And
Hmm.
so the self trust has really trusting that innate knowing and not making myself small. So what that looks like now is, I was telling you a couple of days ago, I was getting ready for bed. I know my son was kind of getting ready. I think we were both kind of winding down at the end of the night. And all of a sudden, I feel a huge shift in the energy of the house. And I go in his office or in his bedroom, and I'm like, what just happened? What's going on?
Hmm.
And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I just felt a huge shift in the energy of the house. And he's like, you did? And I'm like, yeah. What happened in here? And of course, he's 17. He's not going to tell me if anything happened. So I
Right.
have no idea. So I don't know what happened. And I'm not trying to create a story around it, but I know I felt the shift. Where before, if I even would have noticed it, I would have, if I would have even thought to ask him, like, play that whole situation out. And then I would have walked away going, oh, I wonder if I made it up. Oh, maybe it was
Yeah.
just my imagination. Oh, oh, oh. And now I don't do any of that. And to me, that's a very sacred practice is, I know what I know.
Hmm.
I may not know the details or the why or the what, but I know what I felt. And I absolutely felt that shift. And I've been doing that, trusting that so much more over the last couple of years. I mean, this has been building, but
Right.
that has become a really sacred practice and a very important way that I've been healing and nurturing myself. and really working through this mother wound is allowing myself to acknowledge that I have this ability to notice these subtle shifts and these subtle energies, and B, not minimizing, not diluting, not, oh, you're right. I don't defer to someone else. It's okay if they don't feel it
Right.
or if they feel something different. We don't have to be on the same page, but I know what it is for me, and I'm not allowing myself to water that down anymore. And that has been completely life changing for me. Just that one thing of trusting that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, definitely. And it is when we allow ourselves to trust those intuitive hits that we get, right? Or that knowing that there's a shift in the energy, and just knowing, just allowing that knowing to come in is, it can be very life changing. And another practice that I was telling you that I just started just recently is just going outside and being like, holding my hand on my heart and on my belly and being like, today my fire is this. And I'm working with the fire energy right now, so that's where I'm at. But my fire is like, today it's joy. I'll be searching for things that bring me joy and things like that. And so and just speaking it out loud outside with my feet on the ground. And, I'm facing the south, which the south is fire and whatever, but it has been really impactful too. It's really helping me to, it's just finding all that nurturing, I think, is the biggest thing, is because I'm allowing myself to do those practices that allow that little bit of nurturing to come in. And that's kind of like my love language to me, right? Is nurturing myself in that way, and doing these little rituals that take, and they only take them maybe 5 minutes. So by the time I walk outside, it's probably 10 minutes, walking outside, saying my prayers to the creator, and then walking down the stairs and putting my feet on the grass. It probably takes me around 10 minutes to do that whole little ritual that I've been doing every morning. And it just makes such an impact in my day, and helps my mindset, because you and I talked about this all last week. I was in a funk. I was like tired. I was struggling. I was in this downward spiral. I'm starting to feel depression coming on again, and I knew I needed to change up my rituals, and that was a big one that really has started to impact that again. And I'm back to where I'm feeling good again, and feeling the depression's leaving again. And so, yeah,
Receive. That's what I hear too, is receive in it
yeah,
as well. Receive
yeah,
the things, reaching out for um, help when we need it. I
hmm
feel like that's another really beautiful way of healing this wound, is reaching out for help. We're so used to doing it all and not asking for help, and really struggling to receive help. And
yeah,
this is the time to really allow ourselves to receive, and just give yourself that I choose to receive kind of
yeah,
energy and intention too.
definitely, definitely.
So, just a few little reminders here is that healing the mother wound, again, doesn't mean rejecting your mom. It doesn't mean demonizing or anything like that. It
hmm
is just being aware of all the things that we've talked about today. It means reclaiming those parts of yourself that were silenced, overlooked, minimized, not nourished, not supported. Just looking at those sides of yourself that need some of that, and then allowing yourself to be whole. Even if others don't understand your journey, even if others think you're crazy, you've gone off your rocker, whatever the things may be, just
Right?
allowing yourself to embrace that and be whole, regardless of what others think with that.
Yeah, definitely. I love that.
Is there anything else that you want to add before we close up?
No, don't forget our Wisdom Within Toolkit.
Yes.
If you want to, we have some uh, cool stuff in there. I can't remember all the things I put in there. We put guidebooks.
Meditation,
Yeah,
got shadow journal. I remember the
yeah,
shadow work one. We've got all
yeah.
kinds of stuff in there.
Altars, and we've
Yeah.
got spiritual hygiene and different things like that in there. So,
Lots of beautiful things in there. So make sure you
yeah,
check that out. All right. With that, we will see you soon.
yeah. Talk to you later.